Well, hello everyone. This is Mrs. Schweitzer, and today our lesson is going to be about simple, compound, and complex sentences. And we've already discussed and learned about simple and compound sentences, and we're just going to review those. And then we're going to move on to complex sentences. And because if we don't remember what a simple or compound sentence is, we're going to have a hard time learning what the complex sentence is. We kind of review and see the big picture of all the different types. So before we begin, I want you to, I know you can't edit this presentation like we would in a normal Pear Deck presentation, but I want you to think about, or you can type or draw or handwrite, what are two things you already know about today's topic of simple, compound, and complex sentences? Maybe it's a prediction about what they might be, especially in the complex sentences, or just to review, what do you already know about a simple and compound sentence? So I'll give you about 10 seconds for that. All right, so we're going to move on from there. So one reason that we look and study these different types of sentences is because strong writers will often use a variety of sentence lengths and types to effectively communicate ideas. If I'm only using simple sentences, I am going to have extremely choppy writing that doesn't flow very well. And my readers are going to be frustrated with me because it doesn't flow. It doesn't have very good fluency. If I'm only using compound or complex sentences, then I'm going to get really wordy and I'm not being maybe quite as clear as I could be. So it's basically focusing on that element of writing, of sentence fluency, because you do vary the lengths of your sentences if you are a strong writer. So ultimately, there are 4 different types of sentences, but we are going to be looking at those first 3. And just so you kind of know where we're going, we've done simple and compound, and today we're going to do complex, and then we're going to do compound complex, which gets even more complicated. Okay, so to review simple sentences, we have some terms in here that we have gone over, but we'll kind of review them. A simple sentence has one independent clause. So basically it has a subject and it has a predicate, and it could stand on its own. It doesn't have any other conjunctions or anything making it a dependent clause. It is simply a subject and a predicate, and something happens. It's very simple. It is our basic. It's like when you first learn to write, you are writing simple sentences, okay? The cat chased the dog, okay? So for example, we have the iPhone battery lasts for days. So if I'm looking at this, I'm going to see, okay, my first thought is there a subject and a predicate? Well, yes, there is. I have the battery, the iPhone battery is my subject. And so I have one subject, and then I have lasts for days. I have my verb, which is lasts, and then lasts for days is my complete predicate. There's nothing else messing with it. It is just simply a subject predicate simple sentence. So what I want you to do, I want you to think, type, or write just an example of a simple sentence. I'm going to give you about 10, 15 seconds. Shouldn't take you too long, and just to think of some. All right, so some examples I'm thinking of is just even like the plant died. All right, period, end of story, it's gone. You might say the watermelon tastes wonderful. You have my watermelon and it tastes, okay? Those are all simple sentences. Okay, so to review compound sentences, basically, you take 2 simple sentences and you mash them together. A compound sentence has 2 independent clauses. They can be combined, especially with a coordinating conjunction or a semicolon. Now let's go back to coordinating conjunction. Fanboys, it stands for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Those are all examples of coordinating conjunctions. I think of this as a scale and everything's even. I have one simple sentence equals one simple sentence. They are combined together and that makes it compound. So for example, we have ice cream is a wonderful dessert, comma, and I eat it every night. In this example, we have a subject with ice cream up here, and then is our verb. So we have a subject and predicate, and therefore I have a simple sentence. Ice cream is a wonderful dessert. It could stand on its own. If I go over here, I have I as my subject, eat is my verb. I eat it every night. Over here, this could stand on its own, but I have this in the middle combining them, and therefore it is a compound sentence. My next one is, sorry about that. Get back to it. Lucas bought a new car, semicolon. He drives it to school every day. Okay, so, I did it again. Look at that. I'm just going to stop messing with that. All right. Lucas, I believe it said, bought a new car. He drives it to school every day. So over here I have Lucas is my subject. He has bought is my verb. It could stand on its own. Over here we have he drives it to school every day. He is my subject. Drives is my verb. And therefore it is a compound sentence. All right, so since it's a review, I want you to take about 10-15 seconds and write an example of a compound sentence. Ready, set, go. All right, so one I thought of is I go on a bike ride every morning, comma, and I remember to bring water. That would be an example of a compound sentence. All right, so we're on to our new stuff, complex sentences. So a complex sentence is kind of a mix. It has one independent clause, or one that could be a complete sentence on its own, and it has one dependent clause, or something that couldn't stand on its own. It would be an incomplete sentence without the help of the independent clause. So for example, we have Mark went to the bank because he needed money. The thing in red, Mark went to the bank, is an independent clause. It could stand on its own. We have Mark went to the bank. Because he needed money is just a fragment on its own. It wouldn't last or it wouldn't be a complete sentence. The second example, Stacy enjoys jogging before she goes to work. Stacy enjoys jogging. That's our independent clause. Before she goes to work sounds incomplete. You're wondering what's next. It is the dependent clause. Notice you can put before she goes to work, Stacy goes jogging. Because he needed money, Mark went to the bank. You can move around where the dependent clause is. Now, this is what's most helpful to me when I think of writing a complex sentence. Here's a list of something called a subordinating conjunction. These are used to create a complex sentence. Most likely, if you use one of these, you're going to end up with a complex sentence. So if we go back to the previous slide, we notice because in the first example is our subordinating conjunction. In the second example, before is our subordinating conjunction. And just a reminder, in order to be a clause, it has to have a subject and a predicate. I could say Stacy enjoys jogging before work, but it'd just be a simple sentence. Because I have before she goes to work, I have a subject and a verb, it has become a clause. But because of this lovely conjunction up at the top here, it becomes a dependent clause instead of independent. So what I want you to do, I want you to think of an example of a complex sentence. I want you to use the list of the subordinating conjunctions for ideas. Use any of these words from the list to start your sentence. I'll give you about 15 seconds to think of one. Ready, set, go. Okay, so like example I came up with is no matter how hard I try, I cannot mow the steep hill by my house. That would be an example of a complex sentence. Okay. Even if I went to the movies, my mom would still think I was in trouble. Okay. So some review and identification, kind of one of our last steps for today. I want you to read through the examples on the right-hand side over here. And here's your choices on the left. Instead of drawing lines, I simply just want you to read through each example. And I want you to think about, is this a simple sentence, compound, or complex? I'm going to give you about 20 seconds for this. And on your marks, get set, go. All right, so if we look at the first example, Taylor likes candy of all kinds. This one is a simple sentence. We have one subject and one predicate. Second one, although I went to the grocery store, I forgot to buy donuts. We have our subordinating conjunction, dependent, plus an independent clause, and therefore it is a complex sentence. Third example, Judy went out for basketball this year, but she sprained her ankle last night. This one is compound. We have Judy went and we had she sprained with our coordinating conjunction in the middle. Next one, Jeremiah was a bullfrog and he was a good friend of mine. Jeremiah is our subject, was a bullfrog is our predicate, he is our subject and was a good friend of mine. We have a coordinating conjunction and it is therefore a compound sentence. Next example, we have Tiffany plays volleyball. We have subject and a predicate. That one is simple. And the next one, Jimmy likes snow cones unless it is 0 degrees outside. Well, Jimmy likes snow cones is an independent clause. Unless it is 0 degrees outside is a dependent clause, and it is therefore a complex sentence. Okay, I want you to think about to yourself, after watching this video, how well do you understand what we just covered? We go over it very quickly in the video, but we'll go more in depth in class. So if you're like, yeah, Ms. Schweitzer, I got it, you're over in the green. If you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what she just said, you might be over here, and that's okay. We will review and do enrichment activities tomorrow, and therefore you will get over to the green by the end of that day if you are not already. All right, very good. So that should be it for the presentation. And